In my last video, I got a comment asking about the noise floor of the miniDSP 4x10 that I'm using. And I guess the implication is that the noise floor is high on those, because he said he switched to a more recent model, the Flex 8, and it made a massive difference. And I replied to the comment saying that the noise floor is below audibility here in my room anyway. I've never had an issue. Like when I first bought it and hooked it up to use in place of the 10-channel amp that I have now, that I built based on the settings that I worked out with the miniDSP, I never did have an issue with the noise floor. And if anything, that should be more apparent now that I've added these super tweeters that are very close to my listening position. They're just 4 feet away. I actually measured it, and that's what you're watching right now. And my main speakers and my side speakers aren't that much farther away than that either. They're about 80 inches from where I'm sitting. So to try to get an idea of how much noise floor there actually is, I once again used the gadget that I set up to measure the room modes in here with the SPL meter on the bottom, the camera on top to record the display. Now, the first one that you're going to see here is with the gadget sitting on the back of the chair, like the top of the chair behind me, pointed into the room like my ears normally would be, like my listening position, and with the door closed and everything off. As you can see, my room is fairly silent, according to that SPL meter. The only sources of noise in this room are the fan inside the computer that's always on. I didn't turn that off. And also there's a fan on the other side of the front wall in that room back there. That's a circulating fan that constantly runs, but it's very quiet. So that's the only source of noise here in this general area, other than what can possibly bleed in from, outdoors, which is not very much. This next one, however, is with everything turned on. That's my 10-channel amp, which is still not finished and wide open. The little amp that I made a couple of years ago to drive my side speakers, and also the wide open again amp that I'm working on to drive the super tweeters that I'm using for my hearing assist. That's partially finished, but still in operation. So yeah, there's no issue whatsoever with noise floor from the digital DSP that I have. Now, while I'm here, I might as well answer a couple more comments on that video. One was about the 3D printed horn that I made for the compression drivers, and that it should have some support for the rim of the horn so it won't resonate. And as you can see from this, with it set up to print, the rim of that horn is actually quite a bit thicker than the body of it. And I did that for 2 reasons. First was that it makes it so that it doesn't need any support to print. If I had made that so that it lips up and over and kind of returns in the way that it was doing, then that would need support at that rim out there. And I didn't want to use support. I'd rather just use extra plastic to make the part thicker where needed, and it will print cleanly. And also it makes the whole thing a lot more rigid, a little bit more massive, so that you don't have anything that's prone to resonance. Final question has to do with how I settled on the shape for the horn. Well, basically, it's just a matter of drawing something out that looks right. As I showed in another video that I'll link to in the description of this video in the pinned comment, I determined that the actual geometry of the cone can be important, but it's not critical. As in, if it's close enough to what it should be, then it should work well. And in the final analysis, measurements will tell you how well you did. And I did measure the cone with the driver inside there, and it was nice and flat and even, as in no crazy peaks or anything like that. So if it measures good, it is good. He also asked what I glued it together with, and super glue is the weapon of choice for almost everything you can 3D print. It goes together, and I believe it's as strong as the plastic itself. Also, he asks what kind of plastic I used for the cone, and it's just normal PLA plastic that I used. PLA is a good plastic for that kind of thing, where there's no real stress on the part.